I just hit the record button so that we can record this, so we'll be able to broadcast for everybody. You guys have done great. If you'll stay muted, there will be chances later to unmute and share comments, or you can drop comments in the chat box. If you have any questions, things you would like to make sure that we talk about or ask, anything like that, drop it in there. I'll be monitoring the chat box and doing everything from this end. And now I'm going to throw it to Liz, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what she's fixing for us today.
Thank you, Virginia. Welcome, everybody. Who have we got on today? And you can unmute yourself or just drop something in the chat box. Just curious who is here. Do see some familiar faces.
Hey Liz, Jeb here.
Hey Jeb.
Hi friends, Ashley's here from school.
Hey Ashley from school.
Hey Liz, my name is Dion and my mother Pamela's coming.
Hey Dion. Welcome Pamela when she comes.
So I'm Sister Jackie, and I'm here at St. Mary's Health Center. And unfortunately, no one else is here besides me, but that's okay. I'm holding it up. And thanks for everybody else for being here.
Welcome, Sister Jackie. Okay, so we're going to get started. Some people might join us as we go along. So we're in the month of April. And we have some produce that we're featuring this month, which is leeks and mushrooms and herbs. And we're going to talk about each one of those. And we have a recipe that I'm going to demo with that. Leeks were not available, so we're going to be using green onions instead. And so I'm also going to be talking as we go along about maybe some different onion varieties and how to use them, some different mushroom varieties, and of course, a lot of the herbs. And just because we're talking about these three items in April does not mean that they're not available year round. In fact, herbs are kind of just coming in season. They like really more of the hot weather. So mushrooms available year round, herbs available year round, and actually the onions are available year round. So the recipe that I have for you today is it's going to be a green onion, mushroom, and herb frittata. So Virginia and I were discussing a little bit earlier about what's the difference between a quiche and a frittata. So a quiche generally has a crust, and a frittata is an egg dish like the quiche, but it's crustless. And they're really easy to make. They can be made for breakfast, for brunch, for lunch, for dinner. It's an extremely versatile dish. The only really ingredients you need are eggs, typically cheese, and some vegetables. So in this case, we're going to be using the leeks or green onions instead, and the mushrooms and the herbs as our vegetables. But surely there's many, many variations on this. So this is what you're going to need for this recipe. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm using olive oil, but you can use any kind of other vegetable oil. We're going to be using 2 of the green onions, and we're going to be using the green part only. So I have them chopped. We have 16 ounces of mushrooms. I've got 2 different varieties. I'm using just a regular button mushroom, but also what's called a baby bella, which is a portobello mushroom, but it's a smaller variety, the baby variety. 8 large eggs. So we have some wonderful bootleg eggs. 1/4 a cup of milk. I'm using just regular whole cow's milk, but you can surely substitute. You can use almond milk, you can use coconut milk, you can use soy milk, any milk that you like or have. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, and a 1/4 of a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I'm using a white cheddar. You could use orange cheddar, a Monterey Jack, a mozzarella. This is where you have a lot of variety as well, or Swiss cheese too. The equipment that you're going to need, you do need a knife for chopping and a chopping board, because you're going to need to chop the green onions, slice the mushrooms, slice or cut up the herbs, and you're going to need a grater to grate the cheese. The way I clean the mushrooms is there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can take a towel and kind of a damp towel and wipe it off, or some paper towels and wipe them off is kind of the easiest way to clean some of the dirt off the mushrooms. You're going to need a measuring cup and some measuring spoon, and you're going to need a frying pan. I'm using a non-stick one, and you're going to need one that has a handle that you can put in the oven, because we're going to start it off on the stove top, but we're actually going to finish this dish in the oven. Okay, so I've already got the oven preheated. It's at 350 degrees, and I've got everything prepped and ready to go. So I'm actually going to turn my burner on about medium heat here. So wait for it to come up a little bit to the heat, and then I'm going to start off and put some oil in it. We're going to saute, just kind of cook down the green onions first, and then we're going to do the mushrooms. I've got some different herbs. So the herbs that we're using today, I've got some basil, I've got some parsley, and I've got some oregano. You can use any kind of herb that you like. So I do have a question before we start, and anybody can drop an answer in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and respond, but give me the name of 3 different herbs, or even just one herb.
Basil.
Good. One of my favorites. Anybody else?
Oregano?
Oregano, yeah.
Garlic.
Garlic, yeah.
Rosemary is a big favorite at our house.
Rosemary.
Cilantro.
Cilantro, yeah, yeah. Cilantro is kind of most people will like it or don't like it, because there's something genetically we're kind of predisposed to either liking it or disliking it, tasting like soap, a lot of people say. It's one of the ones that I love though. So good answers. Okay, so my burner is up to heat. I'm going to put in the oil. And then I'm going to put in the green onions. Hear them sizzling. So green onions basically are just the immature onions. So it's just the onion tops. But there are lots of different varieties of onions. You probably could use other varieties of onions in here, but this green onion is much milder. It's got more of a kind of a fresh flavor. So anybody want to tell me what other kinds of onions there are? Because there's lots of different varieties of onions. So if you would, either unmute yourself and tell me an onion variety, or put it in the chat box.
Scallions.
Scallions.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So green onions are also known as scallions, basically the same thing. So sometimes they're smaller, sometimes they're larger. The leeks, which we were going to use, are just the largest green onion. They're very, very large type. Any other onions?
Vidalia or sweet onion.
Yeah, and those come from Georgia. So yeah, they're a type of yellow onion, but they're much sweeter onion, and they're typically used more raw. But you can cook with them as well.
My grandma's favorite barbecue recipe uses Vidalia onions. It's the only way I know how to make it.
And I'm not sure when are they in season. So somebody might know that when Vidalia onions come in season.
Today!
Today.
This week!
Very soon.
I was gonna say, I thought the Vidalia Onion Festival was coming up soon, because I used to do work over in Kings County, and
It was
Later
last
than-
weekend. Vidalia pick day was April 19th this year, so they're coming out now.
So we'd be looking for those.
Red onions
Red
are our
onions.
favorite at
Yes.
our house.
Yeah. So red onions typically have a little more bite to them. They're typically also used raw. They're used a lot in salads. So they have a really different flavor profile than typically like white onions or other yellow onions that we typically cook with. So this has been sauteing for about 3 minutes. So I'm gonna add the mushrooms. So I've got the sliced button mushrooms and I'm gonna put them here. And then I've got the baby Bella mushrooms. So I'm gonna put those in here. And this needs to cook for about 5 minutes. And I'm actually gonna use the timer on the oven to help me keep track of that. So a couple of other questions. What else would you use mushrooms in? What other dishes would the mushrooms be good in? What's your favorite way to use mushrooms?
My mother-in-law puts them in her meatloaf.
Meatloaf, yeah, yeah. Mushrooms are have a very kind of meaty taste, but they also add lots of moisture. So sometimes people actually use them as a meat substitute. So you can use it like in a vegetarian loaf, but they're also good added to meat, but especially because of the moisture content.
I put mushrooms in my spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, yeah, delicious in spaghetti sauce. Add a lot of flavor, add texture as well. Yeah. So these are smelling wonderful.
We really need smell of it so that you guys could smell the smells that have been in here for the last little bit.
Any other uses for mushrooms?
We sometimes will just saute them and throw them, either put them raw or sauteed on top of greens or on top of salads or checking to make sure my kids aren't listening. I sometimes sneak them into beans and rice so that they don't know that they're getting a little extra.
Yeah, so we're actually cooking the mushrooms today, but the other recipe that we featured this month when we went to the different truck stops was the salad. We had the mushroom, the green onion, and the herb salad. So we used basically the same ingredients, but we made a salad with it, and it was just a simple vinaigrette mixed together. So many of you had an opportunity to try that. So we used exactly the same ingredients, but made a completely different dish. So I've got a couple of minutes to go on here.
I think some people may not enjoy this, but I like the grilled portobello mushroom as a, in place of a burger, like a sandwich.
Yes, yes. So we're using the baby bellas, but then there are the regular portobellas are, you know, they're almost the size of a hamburger bun a lot of times. So yeah, they're wonderful grilled. Yeah, really have a lot of flavor and they have that wonderful texture and kind of meatiness. So you're right. Mushrooms are used a lot in vegetarian cooking because it has that different flavor profile of meat and the texture as well. So other varieties of mushrooms include chestnut mushrooms, which we had recently used in the salad, oyster mushrooms. Help me out, guys. What are some of the other varieties?
Shiitake,
Shiitake, correct, yes. Yeah.
Lion's mane.
Lion's mane, yeah. Another one, yeah.
It looks really weird, but it tastes really good.
Mushrooms can also come dry. You can get them dried as well as the fresh. It's another way to use them. We're almost there with the sauteing.
Something I tried this month that I'd never had before were chestnut mushrooms, and I really liked those because they had a little bit of a more firm texture.
So once we got just less than a minute to go, to have the mushrooms, and I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit. We're gonna add the fresh herbs. And fresh herbs don't need a lot of cooking. You really mostly add them to the end of cooking. We're not exactly gonna be at the end, but once we put the herbs in, we're not gonna cook it much longer. We don't wanna overcook them. So like I said, I have the parsley, I have the basil, and I have the oregano, and it just smells really wonderful. So about a minute, and I'm going to use my timer.
Liz, is this a recipe that we have to have everything in it to be able to make it? Do I have to have all the mushrooms and all the herbs, or could we?
This is a frittata is a great recipe kind of to clean out the fridge almost. So you can use absolutely any vegetable. You could use broccoli, you could use asparagus, just about anything you wanted to. You could use beans. You could make one that was more of a kind of a Southwestern. That's where you can use a lot of variety with cheese. You can make like a black bean with Monterey Jack cheese, would be totally different. So yeah, that's why I love frittatas. Okay, almost done with that. There it is, gentlemen, we're done. Okay, so I have 8 eggs that are whisked. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. Here's my salt and pepper that I've already measured out. So it's 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper and a 1/2 of a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm adding 1/4 of a cup of milk to that. I'm just gonna whisk it a little bit more. And I'm gonna pour this in here. Beautiful color of the yellow. And what I'm gonna do is cook it until the sides here just kind of set a little bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna add the cheese. Just gonna put it on top. And like I said, this is a white cheddar, but you can use a lot of different. If you like more cheese, put more cheese. Not opposed to that. So they're just kind of setting. 2 more minutes. And really, it's going to really cook in the oven. It takes a good 8 eggs to fill up the pan. If you wanted to make a smaller one, say you wanted to make one for 1 or 2 people, you could of course use a smaller skillet and just half everything. But I've got this nice big skillet and it pretty much needs 8 eggs to fill it up.
Hey, Liz,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
Jackie. What kind of pan are you using? Like a cast iron, or are you using
No,
a?
no, no. It's just a regular skillet, but it does have a non-stick surface. So
Okay.
it'll be really easy for that frittata to come out.
Okay, thanks.
So it won't stick.
Gotcha.
And you can take it and flip it out and plate it, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Or you can actually cut it in the pan. If you're using a non-stick surface, I probably would not use a knife in it. I would probably use a spatula to cut it up. Yeah, because you don't want to scratch that surface.
But if I was using something like a cast iron or something like that, I could cut it in
Yeah.
there with a knife or something.
Yeah, and you could absolutely use the cast iron. You may actually get a little bit of crust on the bottom if you were using a cast iron. Yeah. So I pretty much got it set around the edges. That's all I wanted was a little bit of setting. So I'm gonna turn off this burner. Like I said, we've already got preheated. It's going in there. And so I'm going to set it for 15 minutes. And we're gonna let it cook. I did want to explain a little bit about herbs and how to keep them. So here's the parsley, here's the oregano. I actually cut some mint, and then I had some basil. I think I used all the basil. But the best way to store fresh herbs is you can actually put them in a glass with some water is what I did. You can actually put like a plastic bag over it and stick it in the fridge like that. But one of the best ways to store it is some little plastic bags like this, especially if you take like a damp paper towel, you put them in the damp paper towel and you keep them in the plastic bag in the produce section in your fridge, and they will keep a long, long, long time. So couple of different ways to do that. You can get herbs in the grocery stores. They usually come in some little plastic containers, but you can also get some that are in dirt that are planted. So if you wanted to buy those, you can actually take them, use them, and then you could plant them. So herbs are really, really, really easy to grow. So a couple of other things about herbs. I told you how to refrigerate them. Oh, dried herbs. So dried herbs is another way to use herbs, but consider that you will not use the same measurement. So it's a little bit different measurement. So the general rule of thumb is 1 teaspoon dried for 1 tablespoon chopped fresh. So you need much less of the dried herb than you would the fresh herb because they're really concentrated. But herbs are about the easiest plant to grow. They really just need lots of them. They need full sun, and of course they need water. But you can grow them in pots. You can grow them in the soil. But they're probably one of the easiest plants to grow. So through the magic of Zoom, I've already made the frittata. So can everybody see that? What do you think about that?
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So I also
Nice.
use some of the parsley as garnish. And we're really familiar, as I think most people are familiar with using herbs or as garnish, especially parsley. So I am going to cut a little piece of this. You could also use a pizza cutter. That would probably be a really easy way to cut it as well. So you can see, let me put a little closer. We've got the mushrooms, we've got the herbs, we've got the green onions, we've got these beautiful eggs, we've got the cheese on top, and it's just really easy. You could serve it just like this. You could also put it like on a salad, a bed of greens. It'd be great like that. You could serve a salad on the side. Like I said, you could use it as a breakfast meal. You could have maybe some toast on the side. It's so versatile to use for every meal of the day. So I'm gonna just stop right there and see if anybody has any feedback, any questions for me about anything.
Liz, how long do you think that would keep in the fridge? Like if I wanted to make one on Monday and eat it for breakfast all week, how long would it be good?
I think it would probably last, I would say 3-4 days easily. Yeah, with the eggs. Yeah, I don't think it would be a problem. And you know, if you're gonna heat it up in the microwave, I would just say heat it not very long because you're gonna rubberize the egg if you over microwave it. So yeah, you could eat it cold too. That would be the other thing. I think it would be fine cold. It doesn't have to be heated. So good question. Anybody else?
Liz, if
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood for something vegetarian, what would be some good proteins to add?
Oh, that's a great question, Jeb. So yeah, frittatas really are easy to add meat to. So if you're a bacon lover, this would be great with bacon. Ham would be wonderful with this as well. So those were definitely two meats that I would say definitely add to this. Sausage, those are very common. You know, some breakfast style sausage. You could also use some smoked sausage. So any of those would be great to add to this. Absolutely. And you just make it more filling, more a complete meal. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit of mindful eating. So last month, the month of March, we introduced you to just the concept of mindful eating, which just means being present with food. And the way I say it is mindful eating is just eating with attention and intention. So last month we talked about how you could use mindful eating for selection of fruits and vegetables. So really paying attention to color, paying attention to the weight of something, to the smell. We use all our senses in the practice of mindful eating. This month, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the practice of mindful eating while we eat. And so another way of being present with food is just thinking about, you know, what does it take for food? What are all the processes for food to get where it's grown to me or to my family? And so just thinking about, you know, the former, maybe rain, sunshine, but also there's a lot of hands many times it goes through before food gets to us. Fortunately, you know, buying from the farmer's market, there's many less hands it goes to, but there's still a lot of work involved for food to get to us. So just be thinking about that. What were all the steps it took for the food to get to me? So that's something just to bring more mindfulness into the practice. We also talked these last 2 months about many people. I asked, why did you want to join the 912 Food Pharmacy program? And many people responded, because I wanted to eat more fruits and vegetables. And so just thinking about that, why would you want to eat more fruits and vegetables? Why do so many people want to do that?
Because it's good for you.
Because it's good for you, yeah. And why is it good for you? I mean, I think we know it's good for us, but why?
The nutritions and stuff.
It's nutrition, yeah. So it provides a lot of vitamins and minerals and a wide variety of vitamins and minerals. It provides a lot of fiber. You know, fruits and vegetables are loaded with fiber. It provides other nutrients like carbohydrates and proteins and some fats. But it also provides wonderful texture, colors, and flavors. And a lot of people, you know, we do want to focus on nutrition when we look at fruits and vegetables, but there's all these other things that it provides as well. So that was just a common response from people, as well as wanting to improve their health, try more different fruits and vegetables. A lot of people last month told me that they didn't like certain fruits and vegetables, and one of them that was very common was beets. And we featured beets, and people just said they loved the hummus. And so it was interesting to see when people say, well, I don't like, but then they taste it and they really do like it. So yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I hope you try the green onion, mushroom, herb, frittata. You can try it as is in the recipe book, but of course, make any kind of variation on it that you would like. So see you at the next farm truck stop.
Bye, Liz. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Liz.